Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Pitney. I'm the founder of Launch My Book, and this is another installment of our author interview series. And today I'm very excited to have a guest. She's one of the authors that we've worked with. Her name is Mary Verrill. She's the author of a new biography, which is called Thea Bowman, A Story of Triumph, which she's going to tell us about on the call today. The book is a young adult nonfiction. It's available in print or in Kindle. And Mary lives in Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is her first book. So I first met Mary when she came to our company to help her build a website for her campaign. But as we're going to talk about later in this interview, she's also done a lot of really interesting things to promote it. So welcome, Mary.
Well, thank you, Joel. This is just great to be a guest here. And I must say, the book would not be complete without the website component. I'm just so grateful that we connected. And although I'm a writer, I'm an editor, and I know a lot about typography, I am not a designer. There's no way I could have ever put together something so beautiful. So, this is just great to be discussing something that is useful, but also just a gorgeous website that is attractive, will be fun for teachers to use. It'll be fun for readers of the book to go to learn about things outside of the book. Mm-hmm. For example, there's 20 photos in the book. They are about Thea Bowman's life from age 4. The photos start at age 4 all the way up until 52, age 52, the year she died. But in between, great photos, but not a great photo that is on the website, and that is the only photo I have of her and I together on graduation day from Viterbo University, where she was my English professor and my mentor. And that was my interest in writing this book, knowing her personally. But I did not have that photo on hand in time to get it into the book. So that's why things like websites come in really handy.
They certainly do. And we were happy to get to work with you on yours. But I would love to dive in and just get to know a little bit more about the book, because my guess is that a lot of people probably haven't necessarily heard of Thea Bowman, even though she was quite influential in a lot of ways. So can you tell me, who is Thea Bowman and why is her work so important that you wanted to write a book about it?
Sure. So Thea Bowman was born in Canton, Mississippi. It was during a time of segregation in the South in 1937. So way before my day, right? And she was the only child of a doctor and a teacher. Her father was, I believe, the only Black doctor in town. And she was just super smart. She's just one of those super out there, way smart kids. Love learning, love reading. Wanted to become a teacher. Her grandmother had also been a teacher, so she had always wanted to do that. But here you are in Canton, and the higher education facilities around Jackson, Mississippi at the time, not and even some of the high schools, not well funded, not like today at all. So what happened coincidentally is the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration had come to town, helped build a school. They had a whole bunch of outreach type intercultural activities. They knew the people of the town, they became part of the town. And these teachers were independent, they loved children, they were very dynamic. And so when they opened that school, Thea Bowman said, I want to go to that school. So at age 9, she told her parents, that's where I want to go to school. I want to go to Catholic school. And then when she was 12, she told her parents, I want to become a Catholic. They're like, okay. And then at age 15, she said, well, now I want to go become a teacher. And to do that, she had to go up to La Crosse, Wisconsin, 1,000 miles. away from home. And she told her parents, I'm going to go to high school in La Crosse, Wisconsin, so I can become a teacher, and I'm going to join the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration. And they were like, what? So anyway, and we know these stories because as our professor at Viterbo, she told us these stories herself. She was very open about how she got there and what motivated her to do that and all of that. So some of these stories, if you knew her, you'll go, oh yeah, I know that story, right? But if you didn't, you have to think about, wow, here's a 9-year-old envisioning herself as something. Here's a 12-year-old envisioning, how she wants to lead her own life. Here's a 15-year-old who's brave enough to go 1,000 miles away, right? And with that confidence, she never lacked confidence. Now, a few things happened along the way. So I guess in short, her life story is so interesting. And I think it would be so interesting to teens to hear what she did as a young person. And I thought, well, what kind of a format would grab grades 6 through 12, And so I really emphasize the things that happened to her in her younger life, certain chapters devoted just to these stages in her life, for example. I was going to make this a children's book because there are no children's books out there about Thea Bowman. But it's just too complex of a story. So it had to become a more full-fledged biography. Her greatness, though, as an adult was in teaching. So she went back home to teach at Holy Child Jesus School in Canton. And that was during the movement in the civil rights movement in the 60s in the vicinity of Jackson, Mississippi, one of the centers of the movement. So to be a Black teacher teaching at a predominantly, African-American Catholic school in Canton, Mississippi in the 60s, that was a very brave undertaking. That was brave. So then the sisters said, you're a great teacher, so now we want you to teach college. And to do that, you had to go get a PhD. And so she did. She went off in the late 60s, got a PhD, master's degree first in English literature and then PhD. So by the time I came along to Viterbo College, she was already teaching literature courses there in La Crosse, and also was chair of the English department. So when I graduated and got in that picture with her, I didn't know that was it. After that, she went off and self-directed herself back down to Jackson for the Diocese of Jackson and became their first ever intercultural outreach person. And now she started traveling the country doing public events, singing. Now I should mention the singing because that was huge. If you can imagine going into an English literature class and you can't start class until you all are singing, it's like whoever has that experience, right? So she was a great singer. We were not great singers, but she was a fabulous singer of spirituals from the South. And we learned them all, and we learned all the words. So in the book, which I should hold up here, so Thea Bowman, Story of Triumph. Are you seeing a pattern, hopefully, right? She gets herself somewhere and then she excels, right? And then she's like reaching out to other people. Yeah. We learned those songs and we could not start class unless we were all singing. Yeah. And she meant it too.
I can't imagine.
It was
class.
Yeah, it was super fun. So at the time, if you think back on we didn't have the new paradigm of teaching, that's what they call it now, where they flipped the classroom. That hadn't happened yet. but she was way ahead. She
Can
would
you
say,
tell me, what does that mean? Flip the classroom in the new
yeah,
testament?
that's where the student pursues their own ideas of what they're interested in,
Okay.
or comes up with their own topics or their own ways of learning. Sometimes there's different choices. You can create something, you can enact something, you can, it's not just reading and doing tests
Mhm,
or a lecture
mhm,
and then take notes. You know,
mhm,
it's more interactive,
mhm,
and media is a huge part of that.
mhm.
So we were given assignments here. April 3rd, you're teaching the class. So now I would have to teach the class. I would have to read the material, right? I'm the student, so I have to know it and teach it and come up with a way to teach it. And that was way, way ahead of its time at the time. Yeah. One of her most fun classes was Shakespeare, because remember, now she's a PhD in medieval literature, or literature and linguistics. And she could even talk Old English. The Old English that we also got to learn. Yeah, that English. Yeah, Chaucer and stuff like that. So here's her Shakespeare class. We read every single play except for two. That's a lot.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that was at 8 in the morning for 2 semesters. And you couldn't be late. So here's, actually, I still have the book. It's right behind me here, Riverside Shakespeare. And that thing is thick. So I would have to walk a mile in the winter with my very heavy Shakespeare book, get there sitting down by 8 a.m. But it was so fun. First of all, you have to read the footnotes, in case you're wondering. Read the footnotes. And then, like, your assignment might be to enact part of that play.
Mhm.
So there might be costume design and there might be sword fights.
Mm.
I chose to play the music from one of the comedies that I got from the Folger Shakespeare Library, and then transcribed it, you know, for modern notation, and got a few friends and we played the background music, the music from the play.
Hmm.
So she was just a dynamic teacher, and she was so dynamic and fun that I was inspired to teach college writing. And I did as an adjunct for about 14 years, and other students of hers at Viterbo who went off into teaching, because she just made it so fun.
Mm.
You know, it really was. It's not what people usually think of as an English class, right?
Mhm.
I get it. It's okay. It's okay if you don't like to write English stuff. But she made it so fun. And I just thought, you know, somebody else could try that. But I'm not her. She, you know, she really made it quite an experience
Mhm.
to, you know, to learn literature. So in the book, I wanted, you know, aiming for teens or a young audience. But I also wanted to serve teachers. And so I thought, let's get a website. And on the website is a teacher's resources page with downloadable PDFs. One of them is a timeline of historical events from her lifetime,
Mhm.
which is also in the book. The other is, let's see, where's the other? Let's see. Oh, yes. And then a timeline of just her own triumphs. So if the title is Thea Bowman, A Story of Triumph, well, what were they, right? So this way you get like a timeline of her life, as well as the pulling out of topics that you could use for like History Day, or studying social justice or the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
Yeah, she made sure we were up on our African American history
Mhm.
as part of our learning,
Mhm.
whether it was in Shakespeare class or anything else. She made sure that we knew about, you know, the truth and nothing but the truth. I mean, the truth. And if we had any ideas that we were writing about or presenting, it had to be the truth. We had to prove everything that we said.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of rhetorical training in there as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, she was brilliant and she was tough, but she wasn't arrogant. She wasn't mean. She was just a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope teachers will, not only want to adopt the book for their students, but be able to go to the website, see even more visuals of her than are in the book, like in 4-color, for example, and have these resources available.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I did realize I am not savvy in the website building world. I'm just a content person. So what was I going to do about updates? Because what's happening now is there are continuous dedications of new buildings to her, community centers, streets in Washington, D.C.,
Mhm.
a new chapel in, let's see, that was just last month at a university on the East Coast. So how am I going to convey all of that? Because this is historical, yes, and it's truthful, yes, and I can prove every fact in here, but her legacy is still alive.
Mhm.
People are still talking about her, and she's still in the running for sainthood with the Catholic Church,
Mhm.
having been promoted along that path by the U.S. bishops only in 2019. And I didn't even know that when I was finished the draft of the book. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that was going on. How about that? So I did start a Facebook page dedicated to the book, in addition to the website, that we've built,
Mhm.
just to catch these things that are happening all the time. And I did get a giant boost from Viterbo University, where she taught at, where I was her student.
Mhm.
So the book came out last fall, and I got an e-newsletter about authors who wrote books from Viterbo, and I wasn't in there. I'm like,
Mhm.
what? So I contacted them. I said, hey, you got to put me in, your list of authors. And not only did they do that, they said, oh, you have a book about Thea Bowman? Well, we're having a week of celebrating her life in March. Would you be our guest and bring your book?
Wow.
Well, of course. And I did, and it was just a super blast. And I got to see or have coffee with some of my fellow students up from the, back in the day.
Mhm.
I just had such a fun time. Super beautiful event. They have dedicated a brand new social justice center
Mhm.
in her name on the campus in March, just this March. I know,
Wow.
I know, I
Good
know.
timing. You didn't even know that when you wrote the book.
Yeah, well, and even cooler than that, they had a great idea. So they had a poster contest with the schools around La Crosse and
Mhm.
in La Crosse, and the winners of the poster contest got the book as the prize.
Oh, that's cool.
I know. So I guess, nobody's asking me for advice, but if you have a new author and they say, well, what advice do you have? I would say, if somebody comes to you and offers you to be a guest, say yes. Or
Mhm.
they invite you to anything, say yes. And if they have any crazy idea about doing something with your book, just say yes.
Mhm.
Just say yes and go.
I really like
Is
that. No, that's good. I think
yeah,
that's one thing I always talk to authors about too is, you're going to be tempted to say no to things, but because you'll come up with all kinds of reasons why you should say no, but you should always say yes.
say
The
yes.
tiniest
Yeah,
little interview is worth doing because it's a chance to connect with people about your book.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Well, can I ask you? So, I mean, I know we've sort of like naturally transitioned to the marketing side of things, but I think, because part of who we want to reach with with our interview series is other people who are aspiring writers or authors themselves who are learning different ways to market their books or launch their books, that kind of thing.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and I know that you have a particular type of book, right? It's a nonfiction book. It's about an individual. And I kind of thought I think of some of these books as sort of cause oriented books, right? because there's a lot of people out there who are dedicated to Thea Bowman, her work, her life, her legacy, some of the issues that she stood for. And when you're doing books like that, there's a whole grassroots element of marketing that you can tap into. And from what I understand, and I want to hear more, but from what I understand, you've sort of been surprised by the amount of success you've been able to have in that community. And so I just be curious to know a little bit more about how you've marketed the book. What are some of the lessons you've learned and some of the advice about that you think you'd share with other people?
Right. So having gone to Viterbo University, was a great connection to start with. And I knew that I just really couldn't get far without consulting with some of the sisters, the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration, because when she joined, she was 19, I think 19, oh, now I gotta look at the book, but 19 or 21, and they knew her. They went to grad school with her in Washington, D.C. And I was not going to go far unless they looked at my draft, my first draft. And they did, and they made corrections. But because Sister Mary Ann Geschwin is also the archivist, she said, well, and we met in the FSPA center. She's like, well, we have some great photos. And they started, throwing photos at me, use this, use that, use this. So that's why there's so many great photos in there. There was one thing
you sort of started to engage institutional support, I guess, even throughout the creation of the book itself.
Yes. And I knew
away for a lot, right?
Yes. And I knew that they had a website where you could take photos for free with no cost, as long as that you credited them as the source. So I knew I wanted drawings or photos or something, right? And they were more than helpful. And Viterbo University as well, because I have yearbooks. Now, I don't have my freshman yearbooks, I'm happy there, but it didn't matter. I have 3 yearbooks with great photos that they helped me get those images at no cost to put into the book. So that was huge, because I have worked in publishing. I have been a book production editor, and images can be very expensive, or they can be like restrictive permission wise. And there's no problems there about anything that way. So that's why for the website, all of those photos have permissions. We've credited each one. And so that's super great, to be able to include those. The cover image, though, this is something that popped out at me just doing like a Google search, Thea Bowman Google search. And this is from an art gallery at a church in Chicago, St. Gregory the African. And they were like, sure, you can use it, go ahead. And so I wrote up a document, no royalties, blah, 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 okay to use for marketing and all of that. And so I could put this whole, actually it's a larger image. This is just a cropped part of it. So I could put that, in anything, websites or any sort of display, no strings attached. So get everything in writing, but I didn't feel comfortable without paying them something. So I did. I sent them a stipend, a donation to the gallery. Yeah. So that's the kind of support I'm talking about for all of the images and use of images in marketing. And that's something that you have to be careful of. I even had to get permission from the photographer of the image, not only the owner of the gallery, but the photographer who took the image. And he's also in Chicago. And we found each other in LinkedIn, and I sent him, something in writing in the mail, and then he signed it and all of that. And super great. And I did what you're not supposed to do. I did the cover up in the front because I knew I'd be like, have no time at the end to look for a cover. So I did all the cover stuff first. Do not do that, but it worked for me. It worked for me to do that. So back to the other types of support. So what I'm finding out, which I didn't know till now. So I was gonna get, lists of schools and put them in a webmail and send out to cold, right, to schools. But what I'm finding is there are many, many schools in the United States named for Sister Thea Bowman.
Mm.
Elementary, middle school, high school.
Okay.
There's a lot of them. And so I am behind. I should have done this like months ago. I'm finally finding them all and digging up their addresses and getting names of people. And at first I was sending emails. Hi, here's a book and here's a link to this beautiful website. And there's no response.
Okay.
So now I'm not even sending an email. I'm just sending the book. Here is a review copy, or here are 2 review copies, right? Yeah. And
Are
I'm
you getting
thinking,
a better response from that?
no, because I'm just sending them. I'm way late. I'm way late.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, do that earlier than I'm doing. Way earlier. Like I should have done this like last November, right? But anyway, I finally figured that out. So those are have been going out with a letter. So you can't use media mail if there's a letter, but for first class with this light, it's a light book. So I can send 2 and it's not that expensive.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I haven't seen a whole lot of Kindle sales, but that is for the students that they will adopt it for. So it's okay. It'll pick up later. We're not worried about that. And I'm not relying on this for a retirement fund or anything like that. It's really filling a need. I think that, there's a wonderful official biography of Thea Bowman out there already. But it took me months to read. It's so great, but it's just not fit for a high school and younger audience. It's too big and it's too complicated language and all of that. So that's why I thought of a shorter book. I can't say it's easy to read. It is for the recommended grade 6 through 12 reading levels, which was a great coincidence. I just kind of wrote what needed to be said. And it turned out to be the right level.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, that was a very happy day once I got the Lexile scores. The thing with the Lexile analyzer is you can only submit final manuscript. So I had to wait till it went off into production to get the analysis. And then it was like, whew, fifth grade 6 through 12. Well, that was lucky because there's just some parts that you can't leave out, and there's just some words that are just big. So what are you gonna do, right? So anyway, I think that will be helpful. So I'm trying to reach teachers, I'm trying to reach administrators, I'm trying to reach diocese-wide education departments, district-wide decision makers for adoptions for their district. I'm offering a bulk discount through Itasca Books of 40% on bulk orders being 10 or more. And I'm going to extend that. We'll just keep that because the $18.99 might be actually kind of high for some schools. And those, schools shouldn't be prohibited by me, the author, with a too high of a price, right? That doesn't make sense. So for those who want a print book, that should be a nice, healthy discount, for their school. Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking of things as I go along, but that target marketing, I don't know why I was so late in realizing the school is named for her. Perhaps they would like this book, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like such a no-brainer. And that was my motivation for writing the book, was for the kids who are in a school who don't know maybe who was this person, right? And she was a wonderful person with a very interesting life story. So why not, but yeah, why send it out to strangers when you can send it out to people who already might have an interest,
You want
right?
to start
So,
there, right? You start there and then you grow, right? You start with what you know, you start with
yeah,
a lot of things.
we do have a personal family friend. He teaches fifth grade
Mhm.
reading out at a school nearby in a suburb near Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I sent him 2 books, one to keep and read and one to share, right? And his comment was, I got really interested in this book after I looked at the website.
Oh, that's good. That's
I'm like, what? Yes. So because I had
you
put in
never
our
know. You
email,
never know what's going to compel people, right? You want to make sure you put
right,
your best foot forward everywhere, right?
right. So that follow-up email with the link to the website,
Hmm. That's good.
yes, that was the clincher.
Speaking of the website, can you share that? Let's share the domain with everyone so everyone can go learn more.
Oh, yeah. Well, I should have put the name of the title in it, but I did not. It's verrillventures.com.
So it's VERRILL.
Uh-huh. Ventures. Verrill Ventures. Yes.
And
Um,
we can also we'll put that link in the comments and description for the video as well, so people can go check out more about Mary's book and about Thea Bowman.
yes. Yeah. Well, and I take no credit for the beauty of the site. I don't, and I
You should
hope
take
that you
credit
will,
for the beauty of the book, which is what matters the most.
and the yeah, and there's also a place, thank you, by the way, for the interactivity
Mhm.
where people can correspond with me through webmail right there from the site. So feel free to contact me.
Awesome.
That'd be
Well,
fun.
Mary, it was wonderful having. I appreciate your time today, and it was wonderful to have you. To learn more about you and about Thea Bowman, someone I never knew about before we started working together. And she sounds like a really inspirational person that I think everybody should know about.
Absolutely. So she created community wherever she went, and
Mm.
here we are
Hmm.
creating community again. Here we are. I just got goosebumps, but following in her footsteps, literally, as she traveled around the U.S. Why not? She was a community builder. Absolutely. It's just been great. Well, thank you, Joel.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you want more tips and insights for publishing and promoting your book, subscribe to my YouTube channel here.